Hello everyone, my name is David Scott, book lover extraordinaire. Today we are talking about the Castle of Otranto, published in 1764. And if you're looking for elements of Gothic fiction in the Castle of Otranto or in any other book, look for the PDF that was written and published by Robert Harris, and you will get the full dish on the elements of Gothic fiction. The Gothic elements of the Castle of Otranto, according to the Harris PDF, are as follows. Number 1, setting in a castle. This one is fairly to the point in that the title of the book is The Castle of Otranto, so it stands to reason that the setting is in a castle. Number 2, atmosphere of mystery and suspense. This is created almost immediately with the stirring of the servants in the castle reacting to the outlandish sight of a giant helmet that crushes and kills Manfred's son, Conrad. Immediately we have suspense because we don't know why any of this is happening, and we have mystery because we want to know why this is happening. Number 3, ancient prophecy. The prophecy in the Castle of Otranto reads as follows. The castle and lordship of Otranto should pass from the present family whenever the real owner should be too large to inhabit it. The spoiler warning here is that the owner that is getting too large is in the form of these giant parts, these armor parts that are obviously too big for any person to wear them. These are the parts of Alfonso himself, the originator of Otranto. He's becoming too large. Once that happens, Manfred, the current owner, is in danger. That's the interpretation of the prophecy. Number 4, omens, portents, and visions. In this case, the word portent is used 4 times in the story, and at one point Manfred does say to Jerome, what mean these portents? Number 5, supernatural events. So this one's difficult to grasp because we don't think of giant armor as supernatural. We think of it more as comical. But we do have a ghost that emerges from a painting, and we have the skeleton of the hermit who vanishes into thin air in the chapel. So there are elements of the supernatural in addition to the various footsteps and whisperings and rushes of wind that the servants comment on throughout the narrative. Number 6, high overwrought emotion. This is evident most primarily in the servant reactions to what's happening in the castle, but really if you read it, you'll notice that all the characters are in essence kind of overacting. They're all reacting to each other, to these things that are going on. This overwrought emotion is offset in one part of the novel in which the knights arrive on behalf of Vicenza. They are completely silent. They don't react or do anything, and Manfred is perplexed by this, and it stands out in the narrative. Number 7, women in distress. This one is clearly Isabella. She is being hounded by Manfred because he wants to marry her. She doesn't want any part of that. Number 8, the tyrannical male. So again, we have Manfred, who is trying to control everything, and he's getting worked up and angry by not being able to control the situation, and he's tyrannical because he wants his way and he's not thinking of others. Number 9, the metonymy of gloom and horror. This metonymy, which is a metaphor, it's a type of metaphor, is actually kind of drowned out by the dialogue in the Castle of Otranto. However, we do have scenes that occur in the subterranean area of Otranto, and we also have the fright that Vicenza gets in the chapel, which is kind of a startling, horrifying moment in which the ghost of the hermit encounters him and warns him about his behavior. So when I first read The Castle of Otranto, I wasn't expecting what I got. I realized that this is a dramatic presentation as opposed to the novel as we understand it. The dialogue makes for great theater, and once you interpret it as a drama where characters are interacting on a stage, it kind of actually removes some of the silliness once you understand that concept. It does reduce the ghostly mood of the story, but that's okay because we understand most of the novels of the 18th century as being the primordial novels that we understand. They're sort of the precursor to the polished form of the novel. So we give most of these a pass. We read them as historic literature. There is, in fact, plays that have emerged from the Castle of Otranto. There's a doll play that was made in the mid-1800s, and then there was an animation film in 1977, and there was also a production of the Castle of Otranto in 2009, and those are only 3 mentions out of there's probably been plenty more. The supernatural in the Castle of Otranto is difficult for me to roll with because I don't associate gigantic parts of the body and gigantic armor with being supernatural. I look at it as kind of cartoonish and silly, and so it doesn't really lend itself to good supernatural effect. What I will argue is that this campiness lends itself to the notion of skepticism. When we encounter these notions of skepticism in the novel and in fiction and in reading material, and I've mentioned skepticism before in some of my other videos, it leads me to question whether or not there are certain types of the supernatural that we're supposed to believe in and certain types of the supernatural that you're not supposed to believe in. If I believe in goblins and elves, then do I believe in ghosts and demons? It really lends itself to a sort of inner confusion because you don't know exactly the limits of what you're supposed to believe as a human being. The hermit comes into this narrative as a figure who represents conscience. He meets Vicenza in amidst his travels, and then he's never seen again. But when Vicenza goes to the chapel to ponder his decision and his ideas about Matilda, the hermit appears as the metaphor for conscience, which resembles what happens in Frankenstein, which I mentioned in that video. What's happening is Vicenza is having a moment where he wants to know if his feelings are as they should be, and that question, it comes into mind because he has ideas of what he wants them to be, and as his mind goes through that tension, the hermit appears as a skeleton. Vicenza is horrified, and the skeleton tells him straight up, what you're doing is plain wrong. And in that sense, we have the fiction working as a medium for allowing us as readers to think about the decisions and the ideas that we make for ourselves. There's a scene where Matilda is talking to Bianca, and Bianca mentions that Matilda sometimes notices the handsome man in the portrait painting, the colored panel that it's called, on the wall in one of the main rooms. Bianca hints, wouldn't you just love to be in a romantic situation with this individual? And Matilda grounds us in reality by responding that, yes, the figure is handsome, but I'm not in fantasy land, and I have no affection for what is merely an object hanging on the wall. And that sort of grounds us in reality to the moment, and it draws to mind the celebrity worship that we go through in the modern age. It's only been 100 years plus since moving pictures have assaulted our eyes. Movie makers know that they choose the most prettiest people, the most good-looking people for their cameras, unless the character calls for otherwise. But usually the star of the show is intensely handsome or intensely pretty, and we have a tendency as viewers to think, especially because the object is moving on screen, the person that is, and we generate ideas that we wonder, I wonder what it would be like if I could get together with this person. And we even sometimes go so far as to imagine that we're actually in a room or we're doing things with these people. It's just kind of interesting that in 1864, the idea of celebrity worship, or just the idea that you're having some kind of connection with what is really an inanimate object, could even come to play. So those are my thoughts on the Castle of Otranto. It is recognized as the first Gothic novel, and I am so grateful for that, because Gothic novels are just wonderful to read. I'm a big Halloween type person. It's my favorite time of the year. I like horror stories and novels and ghost stories and short stories. I hope to review every single one of them on this channel. It is kind of a silly narrative at first, but when you understand that it's written for dramatic purposes, or in the vein of the dramatic feel, then it kind of removes a little of that silliness and turns it into more of an understanding that this is like a play that should be on stage. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you'll stick around or tune in for the next one.